Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of Gaslighting the Warfighter. Not one that I am very excited to bring to you, but one that needs to be brought nonetheless. Today's guest is a very interesting and a local individual here to San Antonio. He's a retired emergency physician that has treated over 130,000 emergency patients here in the San Antonio Medical District, as well as a chairman of the 5 Baptist hospitals here in the San Antonio area as well. So this man is coming from a position of authority, a position of understanding, and a position of knowledge, as well as being a father specifically to the individual who took his life on April 7th of 2025 this year. That is Mark Miller, MA2, the United States Navy veteran. You may have heard about this story. It was being plastered all over the social medias. And it was being done in a very weird way. There was rumors of a suicide that had occurred at Audie Murphy, and that was it. There was no real other news that was coming out. It was like a top was being put on top, and the information was being suppressed, and nothing was getting out. I think that is part of the bigger problem that's happening with the VA. This is one of many circumstances that we have seen over the past year. There's 16 other circumstances that are very similar of veterans going to their facilities and taking their lives in the parking lot or in the lobbies of these facilities. And my God, my friends, we have a problem. And that problem is landing specifically at the feet of the overprescribing and the relationships between big pharma and the government agencies that are required and responsible to take care of the mental health and the physical health of our veterans in the VHA. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that very pointed beginning, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Larry Miller. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
First, I want to say, what a complete tragedy this is, and just another example of the prescribing dangers, the harm that is coming from these psychotropics. We understand in the Grunstyle Foundation that within the VHA, there's over 68% of the patients are being prescribed these psychotropics. We also understand an additional 28% within the VHA are being prescribed antidepressants. What is the first take on that?
Well, the take is that overall maybe 67%, but with the VA's the veterans that are having mental problems, it's way higher than that. Almost 100% are on psychiatric drugs. Mm-hmm. I have not seen any in my career come out of the VA that are going in for depression, PTSD, or whatever they are going in for, that come out without a medication. They're all medicated.
Yeah.
So I think the statistics are a lot worse than 67%. That may be overall people go in for other reasons, but people that go in for mental health reasons, which many of our veterans have because of their service, what they've been through for our country, they come back expecting to be helped. They go into the VA, and this is an overview. They just get treated with drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and we've seen it time and time again. There's employees, anecdotally employees within our own organization here that have gone to the VA, experiencing some difficulty, and is being walked out of the building with a brown bag of prescriptions of antipsychotics and psychotropics. And that is the first thing that they're giving them without any sort of conversation of understanding their place, or where they're at mentally, what prescriptions and medications they might previously be on or continuing to take. They're just shoving it right into their hands and giving a pat on the back and say, we'll see you in a month. Is that proper health care?
Well, it's bad medicine, but it's good for the pocketbook, right?
Yes.
So we'll get into that.
Yes.
But this is exactly what's happening, not just to my son, and I'll give you his story shortly, but to most of the veterans that go in with problems with health problems, with problems with depression, PTSD, any of the things with anxiety that they have, and they're just being given medication and fleshed out. So we need to get into that deeper and see why this is happening and what is happening exactly. So thank you for the condolences for my son. This has been very hard for me. But I'd like to tell you a little bit of the history of my son and what happened to him and then what happened to him recently. And this will give us an overall view of what is happening, not just to him, but to the majority of veterans that are going to the VA hospital for help. So my son went into the Navy in 1992. I'm sorry, he went in there for a number of years on the nuclear aircraft carrier George Washington. He was a military police there, and then after 6 years, he retired. It was just about a month before 9/11. At 9/11, he said, "Dad, I have to go back and serve, but I'm not going to go as a policeman. I'm going to go to where I can really help this country." And so he went in and became in Special Forces, became a certified sniper. Now, the problem with being a certified sniper, my son is a very kind and gentle man, as many of the veterans are. He had all the characteristics. He was a great shot. He was the best in his platoon. He could live outdoors in the worst of conditions. He was very patient. He had a steady hand, all of this. But the one characteristic he didn't have is to be a killer. But, he had to do what he had to do. And when deadly force came to him, he returned with deadly force. He had to do that for another 9 years that he was in the service. During that time, over in Iraq, carrying all this heavy equipment around on the A-Bot, it was a gas terminal where almost all the oil out of Iraq came. He had to be sure there was no vessels coming in that shouldn't be, no people on those vessels. There were enemy vessels. It was very, very tough. 12-hour shifts with carrying 85 pounds, and he developed a really bad back for the last couple of years. And he kept complaining about it. And finally, they x-rayed and found he had 2 big bulging discs in his back, so the pain was horrible. So in 2007, they sent him back here to Kingsville Naval Air Base, and to give him a little softer job so he could just drive around in a patrol car. At that time, he got to thinking about all the things he had been through, and he became quite depressed about it. So he went to the doctor there and asked him, I said, "I'm depressed, I'm upset about this, can you help me some way?" He said, "Sure, I'll give you Prozac," which is an SSRI. As soon as he took that Prozac, immediately he became suicidal. Immediately. He went back to see the doctor again. He said, "Wow, I'm having these horrible feelings of suicide." And he says, "You need more." He doubled the dose of Prozac. And so he was taking Prozac and he started drinking on top of it. And at that moment, he made a plan to commit suicide, a very detailed plan. He thought of all the different reasons or the ways he could do it. Could he hang himself? Could he take an overdose? Could he have a car crash? Could he shoot himself in the head? He decided the best way would be an overdose. It would be very peaceful, and he was going to go to Mexico to get his medication, where he found out he could get suicide medicine. He was going to go into Costa Rica, out in a boat way out in the ocean, tie a rope around himself with a weight, take his suicide pills, which is Nebutol, and then drop into the ocean, and nobody would ever find him. That was his plan. And so when he took off, this is something that could be made into a movie, because for the next 10 days, we chased him all over Mexico. I hired bounty hunters. Wow. I hired the U.S. Marshals. I had the Navy CIA. I had the Mexican federales all chasing him around. It was a cat and mouse game with him. He was going to different hotels and things and getting his medication, getting prepared for his trip to suicide. And as we thought all hope was lost, he was getting on the plane to Costa Rica. He was at the desk and getting on the plane. One of the Mexican federales, God bless him, identified him, chased him. He jumped over the counter. He jumped over the wall. He ran with 27 federales behind him in the international airport, and they finally captured him. He was getting out the last door. And they captured him. They threw him down, took away his medication. And I got a call from the U.S. Marshals that they had him in custody. And, of course, as a father, I was elated that they had caught him, because this was the worst 2 weeks of my life, Yeah. They took him up to Chicago, to the VA hospital in Chicago, and put him in a mental institute. I went up to see him.
Is Hines or the larger one?
This was Hines,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
And so 2 days later, the Navy military police came and dragged him out of the psychiatric hospital and put him in jail because he went AWOL. Not understanding he was out to kill himself.
Right.
And so he again tried to commit suicide there within the jail. And finally we got him into I had to pull some strings, but I finally got him into the hospital in Balboa in San Diego for 3 months, and they got him detoxified from all the Prozac he was on. And the psychiatrist there said, indeed, the Prozac is what made him go over the hill. It brought all these tendencies of suicide, took away his inhibitions, which it does. It made him a zombie, but it made him, in this case, just furious at himself, and he had this plan. So after 3 months of being in there, we rescued him and brought him back here to San Antonio. And he lived a fairly normal life thereafter for a while. We knew that he was still depressed, so I finally got him in touch with Dr. Prajaba, who was doing neuroplasticity for veterans. And they mapped out Mark's brain and found out there were areas in his brain which were not functioning well, and they put him through the neuroplasticity treatment for 2 years. I paid for that. The VA would not pay for that. Mm-hmm. It had a miraculous recovery for Mark. He was just doing so well. He was so happy. He was back to his paintings. I have pictures of him painting. He's a very happy guy. And we decided to write a book. Now, she's a psychologist. I want everybody to know. Do not go to a psychiatrist. Go to a psychologist. Mm-hmm. Psychiatrists are drug addicts, are drug pushers, drug dealers. That's what they are. The psychologist will talk to you, and we'll talk to him and find out what the problem is. In this case, he took this treatment. He decided to write a story of his life. Well, I had written a very detailed story as we were going through this back a few years ago. So we put this book together, Dad and trying to save his son from suicide, the son trying to commit suicide, and what we had to go through. And then after it happened, how he recovered from that. We put this book together called Suicide Stalks the Sniper. And this was very therapeutic to him. Over the last 2 or 3 months, somehow I missed some red flags. He was off his treatment. He said, Dad, I don't need those treatments anymore. I'm sorry you're having to pay $1,000 a month for the treatments. The VA won't cover them. I'll just go back to the VA, see if I can get some help. So about a year ago, we discontinued those treatments. I feel very guilty for doing that, I have to tell you. But he insisted he could do it on his own. He could do it with the VA. He became more and more depressed. On April 1st of this year, just about 3 weeks ago, he told his pastor and others he was going to go and check into the VA because he was feeling so bad. He needed to check in. He couldn't do this on his own. So he went over to the VA, and after 5 minutes of treatment, here's what they did. I'm going to read to you what he said here, if I can find his. Here he is. Okay. So what he said to me, he sent this text to me, and I can give this to you. This is Mark speaking. I just left my VA appointment at Audie Murphy. Look at how nice they are. They prescribed me Seroquel. How nice. Did not even listen to my story. Just like a robot that hands out poison to every soldier. I should call KSAT 12 News and tell them that they are murdering our heroic men and women. They did not even listen to anything I said, just prescribe stuff. Unreal. It is a crime. He showed me the pills, and he showed me the reason they gave it was for mood. That was the reason they said for mood. They gave him these pills instead of listening that he was going to commit suicide and help him out. He said, Dad, look at this crap. Can you believe this? I'm going to call the psychiatrist.
Now, I'm no doctor. You are.
Yes.
Isn't Seroquel like an antipsychotic? Like,
yes.
It's like
it's
the
an
most
antipsychotic.
extreme.
And my son was not psychotic. He was
Right.
not schizophrenic, nothing like that. He was just depressed. He had a lot of stress in his life.
Yeah. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, like you're hearing it. This is the truth. This is what's happening. Like every day in the VA, right? Start off with Prozac, doubled the prescription there.
Yes.
Send them off into a world of despair. that, we heard all too familiar in 1991 and 1992 when we did the Prozac summits up in Washington and heard the dog and pony show of the big pharma defending that, while testimony was given by families of just listening to mothers that were being prescribed this, killing their children, killing their husbands, killing their family. And this stuff is still on the frickin' streets. It is beyond me that it's crazy. But I know there's more.
Well, there is more. In going back over my son's phone and talking to all of his friends and relatives, he was very close to me. He was very close to his mom and his sister and his two sisters. And going back, we could see where he was getting in despair. And after he was treated like that on the 1st of April, he planned what he was going to do. He made a very heroic plan. He was going to speak for the thousands of veterans that voices have been silenced. He was going to speak for the thousands of veterans who have been treated badly.
Yeah.
And so he waited until I was out of the country. I'm a missionary in El Salvador. My wife and I went to El Salvador on the 4th. He waited to the 7th. 7th was a very important day in his life because 7 was a number that was important to him. And he made a very careful plan that I wouldn't be there to protect him this time. And that morning of the 7th, he texted everybody that he loved them very much. He talked to his pastor by text, and the pastor said, "Can I have breakfast with you?" He said, "No, I'm not going to." He actually talked to his trash man before he left his home. He has a little farm down by Divine where he takes care of animals and so on. He talked to the trash man, and the trash man said, "Why are you happy today?" He said, "Happy because I'm going to see the light today."
Jesus.
And that's all he said. And by the way, Tim, this is something that's very, very very common in patients and people that commit suicide. Once they have the plan in mind, they know that they're going to be freed from the demons that have tormented them, from the horrible sadness that they can't cook. And so they have a moment of peace and happiness. So he told the trash man, "I'm going to see the light today." And so he hired a cab to come and pick him up. He didn't want to drive his car in case somebody could follow him. And he went to the VA. And at 12:34, he texted me. I was in El Salvador. He said, I'll quote it, "Papa, I love you very much, and I always will." I answered him right away, "I love you too, son. I miss you." He never answered that because minutes later, he went to the VA with his cab. And what he did, they dropped him off in the front steps of the VA. He took a little shuttle back to the parking lot. He had his book, Suicide Stalks the Sniper. He had it written out already in there, a message, more or less a suicide note. And he gave it to the driver of the little van or the little shuttle that took him between the VA and the parking lot. And he said, do you like to read? She said, "Yeah, I like to read." She told me later he was the nicest guy she ever met. She just knew in her heart he was a very wonderful, kind person. He says, "Well, this is the last book. I'm going to give it to you." She thought he meant he was just running out of books. So she dropped him off there in the parking lot, and she went back and she read the book on the way back. She looked in it, so it was assigned to her. I won't say her name right now. But she saw that, and it said in there, "Pretty soon you're going to hear a gunshot. Do not worry. No one is going to be hurt. No one in the staff's going to be hurt. I'm just checking out." She ran in to see the police in the VA. They came running out, and as they ran towards him, he took out a pistol, a Derringer, shot himself in the temple, ended his life. His ex-wife, his brothers, his sisters went to the VA to find out if he had gone there. We couldn't find out where he was. He wouldn't answer any texts for any of us after that. It was silent after 12:30. The VA said, "No, we don't know anything about a Mark Miller." And so all evening, all night, we put in police reports for missing persons, but the VA wouldn't tell us anything. So we suffered all night, knowing that he had most likely gone on a suicide mission. We didn't know where, how, or anything. The next morning, finally, we learned what had happened. And I tell you, there are no words to say what it does to a father, to a brother, to a mother. Especially because with my son, we had never had any arguments. We were very, very close like this. He was very much loved by his family. It was something just beyond that. And these Seroquel pills, just threw him over the edge. So that ends the story for my son Mark. But my son Mark has not died in vain. I'm sure he knew his father is not one to stand by and just say, oh, this is terrible. I'm one that's going to take his message to the top, whatever it takes, do whatever it takes to get this changed. Because it's not for him only. On the way back up from El Salvador, when I heard he had died, I got the next plane I could, caught the next plane up here. I wrote a note, which I posted on Facebook. It got over 25,000 shares. In there I said, I blame the VA for his death. And I do, absolutely. And the psychiatrist who blew him off, and treated him with medication and pills instead of treating him. I have this question to ask. Ask you, ask the audience. My 30 years or more of treating emergency patients, 130,000 patients, I've never seen a pill solve a problem.
Right.
How can a pill help a veteran determine what it was that made him so sad and made him so stressed? How can it help bring that out? How can a pill help them to design a way to overcome those feelings and to map out a way to have a better life? How can a pill give him hope? How can a pill prevent suicide? Well, no, it doesn't. In fact, the black box warning on all these pills say it increases suicide.
Yeah.
So why would psychiatrists do that? I was going to mention when I got over 1,500 replies to that post on Facebook. I haven't even been able to read through them yet, but I'll tell you, case after case after case, I have run through hundreds. The same thing. My father died. My husband died. My son died. He went to the VA. He was depressed. They gave him pills, and he died. He committed suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim, this is not an isolated incident.
It's not.
This is common behavior.
I'm subdued. I'm sitting here thinking of all my friends that had taken their life.
Absolutely. And as you know, I try to analyze, what is it? Why do psychiatrists do that? Why do psychiatrists say they're doing treatment and they hand out suicide? Why do they do that? Why? It's a travesty.
It's criminal. It's criminal.
It is criminal, and it is murder. Every psychiatrist at the VA hospital in San Antonio should lose their license.
Yes.
Not for malpractice, for murder.
For murder. I agree with you.
And why do they do that? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is that they've been brainwashed for 50 years by Big Pharma. Big Pharma controls medicine in this country, but especially psychiatry. They have convinced the psychiatrists through bogus studies, and I can show you the bogus studies, that how wonderful this drug is. These are happy pills, makes everybody happy, okay?
Yeah, mommy's little helper, right?
Yeah, makes everybody happy. Well, it doesn't. It makes some people happy. It makes a lot of people suicidal, a whole lot of people. So they've been brainwashed. They've also been incentivized with dollars. Last year, the psychiatric industry, Big Pharma, paid psychiatrists over $110 million, directly and indirectly. Some of the psychiatrists, some of the leaders in psychiatry, got over $1 million last year for speaking engagements.
Yeah.
About how good these psychiatric drugs are.
Yeah.
The psychiatric industry paid $220 million to legislators. They target the legislators that have to do with medications. So they're all bought. So if I was a congressman getting $1 million from Pfizer, would I talk against them? Of course not. So they control the government. They also control the media. You've seen them advertise pills on media. Are they trying to sell pills?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
They're trying to control the media because they have over 50% of the media's budget comes from Big Pharma. So is the media going to ever say anything against these drugs? No way. So they control the media, they control the government, they control the psychiatrist. Now, for the psychiatrist, this is a neat thing. Psychiatrists used to spend hours. Tim, if you came in and I was a psychiatrist, I'd spend hours with you trying to get out of you I would help you to understand what's going on, help you to devise a way to help your feelings and help your sadness and help your stress and get over this and help you find a purpose in life. Now, in 5 minutes, I can just give you some pills. I can see 6 patients an hour instead of 1 an hour. And I'm making a lot more money, and it's a lot easier. I can just sit back, and boy, my job is easy now. Just hand out pills. And if they don't work, I'll hand out more pills. And it's unbelievable. It's swept under the rug. Most people in the United States do not see this. They don't understand this.
Yeah.
They don't understand what's going on.
You were... you were painting a very interesting illustration between the relationships of the FDA and the CDC and how they and their regulatory aspects are, greatly, leveraging their positions to the betterment of big pharma and big food, and how these are supposed to be the regulatory agencies that are to protect the consumer, to protect the end user, but they're complicit in providing the avenues of approach.
They're more than complicit, Tim. I wish they were just complicit. They actively foster all of this. They are the ones that cover big pharma. They approve their drugs, and big pharma is paid. It pays the FDA 74% of their budget. Now think of that. Is that a conflict of interest? Also, over 70% of their groups that approve new drugs have representatives sitting on them from big pharma. Is that a conflict of interest? And so what they do, they give them FDA approval if they pay enough money, and it's usually in the neighborhood of several $100 million sometimes to get approval for a drug. They protect them against foreign competition. They protect them against everybody else, and they promote the drug. This is FDA-approved drug. Wow, isn't that wonderful? They do not care about, they accept studies, and there's 4 ways that they do that. They accept studies that are relative benefits rather than actual benefits. And that's a subject that would be an hour in itself. But just to make it very simple for people to understand, if for example, I give you a drug that has a relative benefit of 50%, but you only have 1% chance of getting that disease anyway, the actual benefit is only 0.5%. So that's how they also provide studies that are associated instead of cause and effect. And of course, the example is in the summer, shark bites go up in New Jersey, and so do sales of ice cream, and they put those together, and it's statistically, it's exactly a cause and effect, but it's not. Yeah. It's association. You don't get a shark bite because you eat ice cream.
Right.
And so they use all those kind of defective and deceptive methods. They also design studies, and you could design study to show anything you want to. So this is a subject in itself, but they have brainwashed the public. The FDA is actively helping big pharma to poison us. And why? Because that costs money. Now, a veteran with depression that comes in the VA system, a study last year showed that it cost about $1.5 million in the lifetime of that veteran to take care of them. $1.5 million. That's big money. You don't want to cure that veteran and do away with the $1.5 million, do you?
No, it's when you got like 7 million people in the program. That's nearly $17 million.
A lot of money coming in. It goes back to big pharma. It goes back to the administration at the VA. The VA is a big bureaucratic system. It's not designed to help the veterans, and it can't be fixed. You say, well, let's have more psychiatrists. Let's put more money into the VA. That's the answer. That's not the answer. That's like a
it's absolutely the
sink.
Wrong answer.
Yeah, it's the wrong answer. It's like a sink that's flowing over because the faucet's still on and the drain is plugged.
Yeah.
And it's flowing over, and that flowing over is suicide in the ground. And we're getting out maps mops. I mean, to mop it up. And the answer is, let's get more mops, let's get bigger mops, and we can mop this problem up instead of going right back to the source of the problem, which is the big pharma and the overuse of SSRIs and all the psychiatric drugs. If we got rid of that, then the suicides would drop dramatically.
I agree. This is not new territory for the VHA, right? The opioid problem of the 90s and 2000s, right? Where crazily enough, the same amount of people were addicted to opioids as they are being prescribed SSRIs within the VHA right now. But that largely has been solved. The VHA put some attention towards that. They had some programming, and they reduced the opioid dependency and the prescribing practices within the model, and we don't have that anymore. But it looks like they're supplementing pain, the physical pain, for now a mental pain, and they're just putting more of the same into it and saying, hey guys, it's not really a problem just yet. And these 156,000 people that take their lives over the last 20 years, don't worry about them. Like, there's asterisks associated to those suicides. We really don't know what those are, but these medicines work. Let's keep going with trazodone, which has a 61% higher suicidal ideation rate than its commercial counterpart, Ambien. But we don't want to give Ambien to the people. We want to give them the poison, because that $1.5 million, we might make that, but they're really they're taking more money away from us in the end of the day, and they're a liability, and let's end there. That's the way it seems. Like, you come into the VA, you're going to die in the VA. And I don't have any other explanation than that. And especially when the first thing that they're going to do is put an SSRI into your hand and say, hey, go.
Well, these drugs have increased over 76% over the last 15 years, and as they've gone up, so has suicide.
Yep.
The more you put into these drugs, the more the suicide goes up, and you can just see that. So why do we keep doing it? Well, for a number of reasons. Part of it is follow the money.
Yeah.
Part of it is the ingrained practice that they have. And the VA is such a big, enormous organization with all these bureaucrats that it's going to keep on going this way. You can't fix it as long as it's fundamentally defective. Yeah. And so you look at, how can we fix this? You're absolutely right about the opioid. I've often thought that. I even go back further to tobacco. When I first started practicing medicine, they said more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
Right. I remember that.
Well, how do we get cigarette smoking to be less invasive in this country? It's not out completely, but it's way, way down. It's because of education, because of taxation, because of warnings that had to be put on these labels. We knew how to do it. And very, very recently, the opioid epidemic that we had, and that was handled the same way. Let's make that a class 2 drug. Let's have class action lawsuits against the doctors. Let's have the doctors lose their license that are prescribing these and making people die. Yeah. Let's get the word out to everybody. And by a concerted effort, they were able to bring opioids under control pretty much.
Yeah. I mean,
they could do the same thing, and I'm saying what they have to do. Congress could do this very easily. I'm going to give you the 4 points. Number 1, stop pharmaceutical companies from being able to advertise to the public. Conflict of interest. Stop pharmaceutical companies being able to support legislators and government officials in their re-election campaigns. That's a conflict of interest. Stop paying the psychiatrist for using their drugs. That's a conflict of interest. Stop allowing them to publish all these bogus drugs. Make SSRIs a class 2 drug.
Yeah.
Make doctors have special permission to use these drugs. And have class action lawsuits against them. These pharmaceutical companies should be sued by class action. That would put a stop to it. We can do this just like we did with opioids, but it's going to take something from the top. It's not going to take just you and me talking, Tim.
Yeah.
If we can get the message to the right people, and I think we have a chance right now because there are people that are shaking up government. This may sound dramatic and probably never happen. Our veterans would be better off if there's no VA administration, period. What I say is every veteran should have full insurance to be treated at his place or her place of choice. There are 14 or 15 ways that depression can be treated better than SSRIs.
Yeah.
So they should have the right to do that. They shouldn't have to stay and be prisoners in the VA system like my son was. If he had been able to continue his neuroplasticity and neurofeedback work with Dr. Sunita, I'm sure he'd still be here today.
I agree with you. We see with our foundation the benefits of neuroplasticity therapies like hyperbaric chambers, psilocybin, all sorts of these different alternatives that are not evidence-based, right? They're evidence emerging, but the VA does not want to recognize evidence emerging therapies. They want to hide behind the evidence-based because of the relationships that they have with the people that are manufacturing this, right? And it goes back to what I was saying before. You can follow a connection or a relationship in this country back to 1963 when the opioids came in with some of these individuals, but the real story of that business, is how they were testing these products before they came into market. So they were testing a lot of these products in the Kentucky prison system, and then they stopped doing that because the state of Kentucky said, nope, we can't do that anymore. You've got these people all jacked up, and they're taking their lives. So they had to go somewhere else. And who opened the doors for this company to come in and start peddling all these opioids and their garbage into the system? It was the Veterans Healthcare Administration. And that's the end of the story.
It really is. It doesn't take much because, veterans are looking for help. They need help. They sacrificed their life. Few people understand what they've been through. Few people understand what my son went through for the years he spent over there in Iraq. And for him to come back to this country and they're just ignored and actually put into a system that betrays them and it says that they're treating him, but they're giving them, it's quackery. It's modern day quackery is what it is.
Yeah. And these men and women deserve better, to your point. We get told throughout our entire active duty military, careers, be it 4 years or 30 years, that, when you're done, the VA's got to take care of you. Is this the level? If this is the level of what they meant to taking care of me, like, you can have it. Like, I'm tired of watching my friends die. I'm tired of reading stories of a veteran going to get a colonoscopy and walking out being HIV positive. I'm tired of hearing veterans going in and saying that, hey, I'm having a really rough day. I'm going to walk out with cloxapine or some other crazy freaking psychotic that is just out of the ordinary that would not be done anywhere else, but it's being done to the veterans of this country. And it's criminal. And it leads me to believe, just like you, and it is a bold statement, but maybe that's the bold statement that needs to be said, is that the VHA needs to be shut down, period. Because they are, they've killed over damn near 1 million veterans due to, diabetic foot ulcers. Right, amputations. Yes. Over 770,000 veterans have lost their life to diabetic freaking ulcer, like amputations, within the first 3 years of that, which all could be remedied with HBOT therapy, or at least giving them a fighting chance. Nope, not going to give that to you. No, sir. That does not have any evidence to support that it's real. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll go over here, just make sure those opioids land on my front door so I can continue to drug myself from all the pain that I'm in. And then, maybe I won't shoot myself in front of my family. Or maybe I want to quit smoking. And the VA says, hey, veteran, that's a good idea. You should stop smoking because it's not good for you. And, hey, we've got a program that can help you do it a lot quicker, a little bit more higher efficacy, and you're not going to go through those problems. It's a Wellbutrin prescription, yes. Right? And then 4 months later, you're going to start wondering why you're having all these suicidal ideations. And like my friend Corporal Paul Kludak, United States Marine Corps, a dear friend of mine, took his life and had everything going for him, and he took his life because he wanted to quit smoking. That is it's egregious, over and over and over again.
I treat quite a few veterans on my own, free of charge. I'm the medical director for Acacia Medical. We treat people without insurance. And I figure our veterans don't have insurance, so we welcome veterans at our clinic too. I had a fellow named Buddy, came in last year. He was ready to commit suicide. He was being treated at the VA. He was on 17 different medications. 5 of those were different kinds of SSRIs. He was on sleeping pills. He was on all kinds of things. And I've got him down to 1 pill now, and he's a new man.
Bless you.
He thanked me for helping him from committing suicide. But where I could help a lot of other veterans, I missed helping my own because he wanted to go back to the VA and give him a chance.
Yeah. It's heavy stuff.
So I think the call to action really is for us to make sure that enough people know that if the VA isn't shut down, at least the psychiatric part is shut down. Get psychologists in there. Get social workers get in there. The veterans that have cured themselves from suicide ideation, you know how they've done that? It's with other groups, with other veterans. They've done it by using these other things, getting out and exercising in the sun, taking vitamin D, getting into doing yoga, finding a purpose in life. Because, in the military, you have a great purpose. You're saving your country. You're saving your family. You come out of the military, and what's your purpose?
Yeah.
And so, you need to be helped to be directed to where you could be a purpose. There are a lot of things that you could do. Veterans could be guards at the schools, for example. Things like that give them a real tremendous purpose. And that would take away a lot of their depression and suicide ideation. We have to help these veterans, bring them back into society. The military takes a year, for example, to train a sniper to be a killer. When my son got out, he had a one-page questionnaire. That was his orientation back into civilian life.
Yeah.
How can you do that after 15 years as a sniper in the Navy to come out and without any reorientation being entered into society where you're supposed to be able to function normally?
Yeah. There's a program up in Chicago, part of the Rush Medical System, and it's called the Road Home Program. One of probably the best programs that I know of. I spoke for them many years. Would go up there and watch graduations and see people go through this 13-week inpatient facility, addiction, suicidal ideations for veterans only. And there was a gentleman there, the chaplain. He was a former Green Beret, one crazy dude. And he'd give the benedictions and all the things during the ceremonies. But he would tell this one story that I always thought was fascinating. It makes me think about what you just said on the transition of the warrior, right? Be it combat or just coming out of the military with no combat, it doesn't matter. In the old days, back in the days of the Scots, the early Scots and the Romans, right? And you got Hadrian's Wall and all that stuff. The tribalism of the Scots would be they were fighting and they would come back. The shamans would pose or posit these individuals outside of their villages, and for weeks they would go through decompression periods, and often being guided through some sort of meditative state or psychedelical state, but it was some sort of purging process that the individual was going through before they were reintroduced to the community. And what that produced for those communities were highly engaged, highly efficient, contributing members of their society who often led them in roles of local leadership or agriculture or things of those nature. We don't do any of that today, right? Our TAPS program is the same as it was 30 years ago. It's woefully it's not helpful for the individual. It doesn't mean that there aren't great people that are trying to do great things and right that wrong, but the government is slow to move on anything, and trying to do something rightful and righteous within that system is often met with other forces. So we continue to have a program today that does not set those individuals up for success, to point them in the direction of saying, hey, you're going to have to look at what your purpose is. There's no purpose in the conversation. There's no conversation of purpose when you're talking to those individuals as they're leaving the service. It's, hey, what do you think about your resume? Have you thought about how your bulk fuel specialist experiences are going to transfer into the civilian place? I think the conversation should be steered in another direction of like you're going to come up against some hard times, and if you do not have purpose, then those are going to be met with darkness.
I really like your idea of having a home. We talked to my wife and have talked about that, putting together a home for veterans. I think we should get together and do that. There's a lot of veteran organizations out there. They're somewhat scattered, and we need to unite them behind some great ideas. And one of the great ideas you just gave me is to have a place where people can go for a few months and be able to relax and be able to know that they're welcome there, be able to go out with the animals or with the outdoor, have some lessons on how to reorientate them, find them jobs that they would really like to do and can do, and give them purpose. That's the answer. That's the answer, rather than just giving you a bottle of pills here.
I mean, think about the guy or the gal that had some combat experience, had a combat injury, forced retirement, right? Forced retirement at 32 years old. This individual's going to have to go the rest of their life without really having some sort of gainfully job that they had in their mind that they would be doing at 40, 50 years old. They're permanently retired. All their friends have day jobs and this, that, and the other, and they're sitting at home with their bottle of pills, watching The Price is Right, and wondering if today's dollar is the dollar that I'm going to be one over or one under, right? And I think that is just like it just doesn't make sense to me, man. Like it really doesn't, in terms of, we talk this big game in this country of how we want to take care of our veterans, and like I get it, but I firmly believe that is remnants of my parents' generation of trying to make themselves feel better to what they did to the Vietnam veterans, and I say this a lot in the sense that great, you thank me for my service, I appreciate that, But we've gotten to this position now in the United States of America, in our compassion and empathy, that we say thank you for your service as I'm stepping over your homeless ass sitting on the street, or when you're in a position of deep mental anguish and you need somebody's help and I don't have time for you. I'm sorry, right?
Well, actions speak a lot louder than words, Tim. They really do.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. These poor people under the bridge that are veterans there, we should be picking them up, giving them a big hug, and taking them to our homes,
Yeah.
Come live with me. I'll take care of you.
Well, I think we have there's a lot of work to be done. And, this is the hardest work that I've ever done. I say this a lot. This is not the sexy subject. This is not the things that I want to be talking about. I'd much rather be at the range with my bros and shooting guns and having the time of my life. Exactly. and doing the great things. But I can't do that when I know that my friends are dying, man. Like when my best friend kills himself, he just wanted to quit smoking, right? When my commander of my battalion is dead because he wanted to serve his country, and he was exposed to some carcinogenic burn piles that we had to live next to, right? And then I have to think about, my buddy that just lost his colon, right? And he's fighting for his life in those regards. And this is all because of military service. We raised our hands because we wanted to serve our country and our countrymen. And we're being killed and murdered by our own government. And the people that are charged to take care and provide the medicine and the health care that is required for these individuals that have circumstances that are beyond the average civilian, that is a far different scope of needs. And I'm just heartbroken.
You said it very well, Tim. This is exactly right. And so we need to have a change in attitude of our whole population, of all the people in America. We need a big change in the government. and what they're doing for our people as well. But we can't just leave it up to the government. If we do, we'll fail. I've learned in every aspect of life, if we leave it up to the government, it probably will not happen. We have to do it ourselves. We have to take control of this situation and make it happen. And one of the things we can do to make it happen is get the word out there, get lawsuits against these people, get doctors that are prescribing these unethically to lose their license. We need to get out there and start doing something. So just saying, government, you have to do it, is probably not the answer.
Right.
We can urge the government, we can prod them, we can force them the best we can, but we have to take action. We really do. It starts at an individual level with people that we know. We all know veterans. We need to make sure that they're taken care of properly. And I want everybody out there to say, if you know a veteran, if you have a veteran in your family or if you know one, befriend them, get to know them, find out what makes them tick, find out what's bothering them, find out if they have any red flags that need to be helped. Get them out of the VA system, get into somebody that can give them good help through a support organization, through a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, get them into any of these programs that can help them. And I think this is, one by one, we can help all of our veterans. We have to do that.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that we are doing at the Grown South Foundation, and I think we'll be bringing you along for this journey, is we are involved in the War Cry for Change Summit or campaign. And we will be holding a summit in the first weeks of June in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol building at the invitation of a certain senator. And we will be having this very tough conversation on Capitol Hill with all the right people, with all the right influencers, all the right lawmakers, and we're going to cause some ruckus. We're going to be loud. We're going to point the finger. We're going to, bring our silkies, and we're going to march around the mall, and we're going to throw our prescription bottles into a big skull retainer, and do all the things to bring as much attention to this as possible, and Mark will never be forgotten, nor will any of the other brothers and sisters that we lost along the way here. And it's our responsibility as veterans, to make sure that we are protecting the next generation of the warfighter, because in all circumstances, like for a lot of us today, the die has already been cast, but the warfighter of tomorrow, we have an opportunity to do better for. I think of my son who's in the United States Navy right now, and I don't ever want this shit to ever happen to him or anybody for that matter. And that's the responsibility that we have, and that's what we use this platform for. And I will always share a microphone with men and women like yourself that are willing to, damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead.
Thank you very much. I'll be with you there in Washington, absolutely. Carrying my sign and throwing my bottles into the bag.
There you go. Well, Larry, is there anything else you'd like to leave everybody with today?
I want the parents, the loved ones of anybody that's committed suicide to not to blame yourself. It's easy to do. It's easy to say, and I keep blaming myself. What if I could have done this? What if I could have done that? And to a large degree, maybe we could have all done better. But, you can't feel guilty because the war veteran, the war hero, did their best. They did what they did under the circumstance. We don't know how they made that decision. We are not there. We say it's an act of cowardice. I say it's an act of great strength and courage to do that. And I think as families, we have to come together. We loved our family members that committed suicide. We have to use this not to go and curl up in a corner and cry. We have to use this as a cry to go forward, to make changes.
Yeah. We
have to be the voice of those people in our lives that have committed suicide. We have to speak for them.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Mr. Miller, I'll share that burden with you, man.
Thank you very much.
And for anybody out there that is listening and has lost anybody to this, we'll carry that burden together. It is it's the most important conversation of our time.
It is.
And
By far.
I'm so sorry. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of Gaslighting the Warfighter. I dedicate this episode to MA2 Mark Miller. Fair season following wins, brother.